This is a message to my haters. And to keep it interesting, if you don't hate me, all good. Thank you very much for your support. But there's going to be a whole lot of tips for you just for crypto in general. So let's go over some of the hate. Now this relates to greed, but actually there's plenty of hate on many different topics, and we'll cover them very, very quickly. As you may know, Voshi did this greed experiment. This was all about getting a meme coin, and then in the end, it actually wasn't a meme coin. He instead took the soul and delegated it to the greed validator, with the purpose being the actual profits from the validator would go to educational content in the future to stop people from degenning so much. I did a follow-up video on this, got plenty of hate, but to be perfectly honest, the majority of people were completely fine. Like I've got plenty of upticks and not too much actual hate, but there's always a small portion of people that really, really hate it. So a quick little bit of background. Voshi has already done this experiment. He did this 18 months ago. He did it again. We actually thought this time we were actually going to get a greed token. And the reason why we thought we were going to get this is because there's been all these crazy pre-sales, low effort, people being rugged. So Voshi came out with a plan to show that you need to put in more effort to all these meme coins and stuff like that. After this has gone out, he put out this big post here talking about the people that had helped him, supported him. And a lot of these people are very, very smart people. They're definitely the right-hand side of the IQ curve. And then, of course, you can go through the actual comments. Most of the comments are like, oh, it was another experiment, haha, funny, or good lesson to learn. But of course, there are some people that were really, really unhappy. And once again, these people essentially are haters. Now, to be very clear, what Voshi did, I don't actually agree with. He did it though, and that's it. Like, he's done that. You still have access to your soul. It's just now staking. You just can't unstake it until September. But I just want to point out some actual haters. NFT Jordy, can't believe people really fell for this twice in a row after last time when you hacked everyone's Twitter. These are very strong words and they're just factually incorrect. Abusing Twitter permissions and posting without people's consent is a definition of a hack. When literally we knew that we were allowing right permissions. We understood the risk. And if there's one thing that I've learned from this experiment, I will never do that ever again. This is what the tweet actually looks like. Greed consumed me again, but this time it's different. Blah, 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 blah. And some people went and commented, and plenty of views. I imagine quite a few people actually had these tweets go out. They were done on an automated basis. Echelon.eth found it absolutely funny, and whatever. And some people were unhappy, and other degens were just sad they didn't get their greed. Anyway, so I'm going to delete this post just so there's no actual confusion. We'll just delete it. And a little bit more context from Voshi. So you can actually delegate your staking account to another validator if you want to. And also stay tuned to Voshi. Locked staking accounts, people created yesterday's, have a lockup authority controlled by the DAO. So everyone will have the opportunity to remove their lockup by learning some governance basics. We will publish tutorials and explain everything soon. I don't know how long it's going to take, but you can follow Voshi and essentially you should be able to actually unlock your soul in the near future. Now this video here, this is public. You can go and read everything on what they're basically talking about. Some people have been quite aggressive. Now here's a little bit of feedback, just in general. Firstly, a lot of people have given me feedback that I actually don't smile a lot on camera. I'm just talking to a camera. I don't think it's really worth smiling. But in real life, I smile all the time. So one thing is I've been trying to work on smiling more. So here I am, going through this video, just kind of smiling away. And I say early on at like 1 minute, 25 seconds, it's completely fine. What I mean by this, and we'll go over this shortly with some tips, is essentially I've been in crypto for so long that my emotions don't really affect me. Like, of course, when FTX rugged, that was a hard day. It was a hard week, probably it was a hard month. But in general, if a few soul is lost, if a few soul is gained, if something's really epic, if something's not so epic, that's just the nature of mastering your emotions, which you have to do when you're trading or if you're in crypto or anything like that. So I definitely agree that I need to convey this better because there's a lot of people that are watching this that are new to this content and I need to try and see their viewpoint straight away. Having said all that, the very opening thing is always, crypto is often volatile. Nothing I say is financial advice. Do your own research and use educational content to learn. Now, this is just one example. I can give you other examples as well. Let's have a look at the Bitcoin price. With my daily updates, I cover people that are good at trading generally. I also state very plainly that for a good trader to be really good, they only have to win like 60% of the time. I don't even know what the actual win ratio is. The reality is they have to win more than they lose. If we zoom out a little bit, we can see the price, plenty of volatility there, lots of fear in the market, then lots of euphoria, and this is the way it is. So then I go and cover tweets and I say, as an example, Saint Pump says, this is bullish, and then it turns bearish, and then it's bullish, and then it's bearish. And there's one super important thing you need to keep in mind. If you're not in crypto all the time, you would not actually realize that data can change so quickly that it can literally go from bearish to bullish. And then the other issue is if you go and follow one YouTuber and they have like really long videos, and if you don't catch their next video, then you may miss if they actually switched. So that's why I do mine in my particular way. I'm mostly just trying to keep you up to date in a really short time period. Now, of course, I could be your typical YouTuber and I could go and have a look at something like this, be on a chart, and I can say something like, oh, this can go up. This can definitely go up. However, it can also go down, and maybe we could just kind of go sideways. And then a couple of days later, it goes up, and then I put out a tweet and I say, I called it, guys. I told you it was going up. Well, the reality is you actually said all three. And this is done by so many different YouTubers, so many different educators. I find it to be honest, which is why sometimes I'm rather boring when I say I literally dollar cost average and then just stake my soul. The reality is that will likely, not financial advice, outperform the market. The other thing, of course, some people won't like a particular token. Some people won't like Bonk. Some people are not going to like the fact that I reference the Bonk guy and how he put on a massive long. He's paid a whole lot of money in funding. Some people won't even understand what that means because it takes time to learn. The current profit on this is 10.3 million. All-time high was $18 million. But this is very important to actually know. The reason why people are so interested in meme coins is because of this effect. There is a chance to make millions of dollars. And if not millions, maybe you can settle for $100,000. That's still a life-changing amount of money for a lot of people. Also, the website pump.fun, this is a website that I personally don't use, but so many people are drawn to pump.fun because it offers you the chance to basically get one of these lottery tickets. So let's go through the tips. I think this will be good for if you are hating on me and you want to try and extract some more value, then this could be valuable for you. And then you can see if you can align your intentions with my intentions, which is of course just to educate as many people as space in Web3. And if you don't hate on me, thank you very much. Let's just keep on learning together. So tip number 1, effort. Your efforts need to be more than the next person. 5x or more the effort, in my opinion. Many people have written about this. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're putting in more time. You cannot work 100-hour weeks every week. You will be burnt out. So you need to find ways to learn things faster. You need to find ways to be more efficient. And that's just the cost of success. Podcasts, discussions, debates, Twitter, they help reduce an echo chamber. If you've got one viewpoint and you don't like another viewpoint, you need to open yourself up to all these other viewpoints. Otherwise, it's dangerous and you're just missing out on basically the world. Respectful disagreement is encouraged. If you disagree, fine. You're welcome to disagree. I had one person, and I'll admit it's only one person. They basically came, they tracked me down, they jumped into Discord, they started firing just a whole lot of aggression, and I'm not going to show what they said or anything like that. They essentially said they found a huge amount of value from my channel, from this education. And then because the greed experiment did not go as planned, that's it. In their opinion, my channel should not exist. And all the good work that I'm doing to try and save people time, stop them from being scammed, using a burner wallet, keeping them up to date, giving them tutorials, all this sort of stuff, screw it. Screw it all. In their opinion, I'm a waste of space. That is exceptionally disrespectful, and the person argued that they're entitled to their viewpoint. They are entitled to their viewpoint, but they need these tips. Tip number 2, you ain't that smart. You, myself, the majority of people, we're just not that smart. The middle of the IQ band is where most are. You need to get to the right. If you don't know what the IQ band meme is, then this is an example. This is referencing 250k Bitcoin. This is something that I don't actually agree with, but this is something that a lot of people will understand. What we have here is an IQ bell curve. The majority of people are in this middle area. We're talking the vast majority of people. More than 68% of people are right here. When we want to get to the actual right-hand side, this is where people are far smarter. They have a high IQ, they can recognize opportunities, they know how to work with the right people, and it just makes so much more logical sense. The way they do this meme, they essentially equate the people on the far left to being the same as the people on the right. This is just the way the meme is done. It's not actually correct, but we won't go over it. The ultimate goal is get yourself to the right-hand side. On certain topics, I would say I'm over here, over here, over here, but quite often I might say something in a video like I was mid-curving it. In other words, I didn't see the actual opportunity of a particular project, and so I sat in the middle. As an example, Nasana, that token on Solana, I just completely mid-curved it. Here's the next point. If you hang out with 5 millionaires, you learn habits and can become a millionaire yourself. Now, I understand you may not have access to 5 millionaires. However, if you hang out with 5 lazy people, the result is, of course, you are lazy. You need to hang out with people that push you up, that expect more from you. The other thing is, getting smarter isn't easy. It's the compounding effects of daily actions. So you do a little bit every single day. As an example, I need to learn Portuguese. I've been putting it off, then I'll do a little bit, then I'll put it off. Whereas if I just did 20 minutes every single day, I would probably do quite well within 6 months or a year. The same thing applies to crypto or anything you want to learn. You need to compound your gains and your knowledge, ideally every single day. You can skip maybe 1 day or 2 days, but for the majority of the days, like 5 days or more, you want to be learning. Tip number 3, you can be wrong. If you don't agree with something, whether it's from me or anybody else, see if something can be extracted as value. If nothing, discard it. If you don't agree with the majority of things, then you can't actually learn that well. Next thing is, if you don't take responsibility and blame others, you are doing yourself a disservice. You get your information, you need to evaluate it yourself, and then you need to act on it. Whatever the consequence is, you need to deal with that consequence. That is your responsibility. Keep in mind something very important. I don't shill anything. I get emails and DMs all the time where they basically want to say, hey, do you want some of this meme coins? Do you want some of this? Can you mention it in the video? The answer, of course, it's always no. And if I ever talk about a project or a meme coin, it's because I actually have a viewpoint that I think this is a valuable thing, or I like it. Like as an example, Bonk. Bonk doesn't pay me anything to actually talk about Bonk. I just like it. Next point, intelligence means you can change your mind with new data. If you have a viewpoint and you change it, great. If you have a viewpoint, new data comes in, and you think you should change it, but you don't because you don't want to go off your original decision, then that's not intelligence. Tip number 4, trading. So trading takes time. Learn to trade, and what I'm referring to here is basically longing, shorting, perps, leverage, all that sort of stuff. But the rare people that are winning so often, they normally have lost a lot before. So as an example, back to Bonk guy, the profit and loss, 10.3 million. All-time high was 18 million. I don't know why he didn't take any profits at this point when it looked like probably it wouldn't go much higher. Instead, he's sitting here right now at 10.3 million. However, as the peak of the cycle actually comes in, maybe this is going to be worth 50 million. I don't have a trading course. However, keep in mind, a short course won't help you master emotions like experience. So just keep this in mind with your size. If someone's putting on a massive long and they've been trading for some time, they'll have stop losses set, take profits set, maybe they're even hedging on another exchange. And if you don't know what any of that means, just keep in mind that if you go and watch a video that shows you how you can make $10,000 a day, and it's a really well edited video, and you have to sign up for a course and you'll be on your way, bam, 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 easy peasy, you have to realize that's just not going to work for the majority of people. If you want to become, say, a surgeon, it takes years of studying and then internships and then experience to become a world-class surgeon. Yet there are people out there that think they can learn how to trade and be really, really good at it by watching like 5 videos. The reality is, if it was so easy, everyone would do it and we would all be super wealthy. And if we're all super wealthy, then money printing would happen even worse. And to buy a hamburger would cost like $200. Tip number 5, whales and narratives. Narratives are very important. You have to understand what the narratives are, and you have to understand them well. I have a thesis that real-world assets and real estate will form a major part of the end, or maybe the middle to the end of this particular cycle. Right now, another narrative is the fact that DPIN is really, really hot. NFTs right now, they're not part of the narrative. They're just not there. There are some smaller projects or some really cool things like, as I've mentioned, the comics. I really like those. But in general, NFTs, they're not hot. Whales. So whales and Web3, you've got basically a hierarchy. The big OG BTC whales, they can be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Under them, ETH whales. ETH whales can move markets, and with smaller alpha chats, they can hype things up. They're also worth a huge amount of money, and these people can essentially just set the stage. Like one reason that Bored Ape Yacht Club did so well was because of whales and these small alpha chats. In my opinion, Solana whales are more institutional. There are some people with a decent amount of Solana, but it's too new of a blockchain to really have these massive whales. Of course, they can jump in, they can push up the price of a meme coin with something like low liquidity, but they don't have for the majority of them, hundreds of millions of dollars. OG Bitcoiners do, and Ethereum OGs do as well. Of course, however, actual people with a lot of Bitcoin, they can go and trade on, say, something like Coinbase with a whole lot of money, or Binance or Bybit or whatever, and they can push up the coins thereafter as well. But you have to respect whales. Just like the Web 2 world, they basically call the shots. As an example, FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, they weren't actually whales. They were borrowing other people's money. Same with Suzu, Celsius. They had a whale amount of money, but they were not whales. They were not necessarily part of the inner club. If you look at people like CZ from Binance or Justin Sun from Tron, these people have billions and billions of dollars of personal net worth. And those are the people that we know about that are doxed. There are plenty of others as well, but there are a lot of people that are still anonymous. They are largely anonymous. They do call the shots. It's just important to keep it in your mind. I don't have any real lesson with it. Just keep in mind that they do call the shots. Tip number 6, operational security. Get a Ledger wallet. Use a burner wallet. If you don't know what these things are, just go and search my channel. Keep your data safe, and if possible, be anonymous. Putting your face to your name, it works in my case because I'm trying to actually educate you, but I'd actually prefer to be completely anonymous. It would be so much easier. Tip number 7, keyboard warriorism. Now this is something that's just prevalent throughout the entirety of society, but do this and expect to be muted or blocked. This is not necessarily my viewpoint. This is just a viewpoint of the people on the right. They may engage to a certain point and then they just don't. There may be some people that block a little bit too fast even when you haven't said anything wrong, but just keep in mind, in the end, you're actually going to have a lot more noise on your timeline and less alpha if you engage in keyboard warriorism. In my opinion, if you wouldn't speak like that in real life, then just don't type it. As an example, some of the things that I read, some of the things that are sent to me, some of the things where people just want to just take up my time and then just disrespect me completely. I am absolutely certain they would not come up to me in a convention and say, these are my views. The next thing, the ultimate goal, in my opinion, is to be better. That's why you're watching this channel. You're trying to become better. So just be better. Tip number 8 is make mistakes. Make smaller mistakes and look for the lessons. Learn the bigger mistakes from others. As an example, when it comes to ledger security or when it comes to copying and pasting addresses, these things can be extremely expensive. Here's a good example. This doesn't relate to Solana, but just relates to crypto in general. Someone lost $71 million due to a phishing attack. They did not lose access to the actual seed phrase or private key or anything like that. What they did is they generated a new address and they transferred a small amount of ETH to this address. This was the actual test transaction. A scammer then generated an address with the same starting and ending letters and transferred 0 ETH to him. So the transfer appears in his transaction history. And then, since many wallets hide the middle part of the address to make the UI look better, like as an example, let's jump into Phantom Wallet here and receive dog with hat. As an example, first 4 and last 4 characters. And personally, I've often said, make sure you're checking the first 4 and last 4 characters because that's all that was required. And now scammers are getting up to this new level where this person went, they copied the actual address that they saw as the most recent address, and they ended up transferring $71 million to the scammer. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about learn bigger mistakes from others. This is a little bit cliche, but we learn by falling down and then getting back up. If a big mistake happens, see in real life friends and touch grass. The game is life and it's worth it. I think life is worth it. I'm referring here to when people make really big decisions, they blow up, they lose a lot of money, and I think you can understand the next point that I'm trying to make. What I'm essentially trying to say is when you're feeling really, really down, when things do not go your way, go and touch grass, speak to in real life friends and family. Don't just jump on Twitter and talk about how things are so bad. You need to actually go and speak to a human. Tip number 9 is do your own research. Do your own research. Researching is a skill, learn it. If you don't know how to do it, then learn it. There's plenty of videos you can watch. Eventually I'll get around to actually doing one myself. But remember, all this takes a whole lot of time. Follow a post or bit of info and see if it fits your risk level. So as an example, let's say you have a low risk level and I mentioned, say, Sanctum. Maybe you don't want to go and do Sanctum. You've read through it and then you think, you know what, going and farming the XP points, it's not going to be worth it because I just want to keep my actual Solana on my ledger. I'll stake it with validator.com. It's there, it's safe, I don't have to worry about it. It's something I want to keep there for a year and a half. Maybe I want to sell some at like $600 or something. Maybe you have that as a price target. Also, if you fail often, you need to learn to do your own research more. So as an example, I've met people that have turned $100,000 into $1,500 because they just went into one project and then one project and then one project, and they just gotten late all the time because they're trying to turn $100,000 into $1 million, but they just didn't actually know how to research. Of course, this is unfortunately gambling, but if they knew how to research, it would make it a lot better. They'd be able to work out, you know what? I'm going to put a certain amount into this meme coin, and then I'm going to go with this project because I like this because of these reasons. Tip number 10, the cycle. So markets behave in up periods and down periods. Know this, and know it's been common in the past for things to lose 90% plus of their value. So if we go to CoinGecko, we could pull up quite a few examples of this, but let's just use, say, Ethereum as a kind of example. We'll zoom out to max, and we'll go back to not this cycle, but the previous cycle. So the previous cycle was a high of around $1,400, and then it dipped down to under $100. That was massive, completely massive, and ETH was in some ways a little bit OG. Solana, currently $145. We know how brutal this was, of course, hitting highs of $260, and then I can't show it to you exactly, but it hit lows of $8. This is common. You just need to know that's how it works. We'll cover this throughout the cycle. We are in the initial period of a bull market, and historically, it is more choppy. Goes up a little bit, goes down a little bit, goes up, goes down. There are some tokens that will go rocketing up and some that will rocket down. But in general, we're just kind of this choppy period. Tip number 11, portfolio management. You need to work out, with help from YouTube, alpha groups, friends, whatever you want to allocate into what category. As an example, you might have some going to Bitcoin, some going to Ethereum, some to Sol, some to Solana ecosystem tokens, and a small portion to meme coins, NFTs, or whatever. Personally, what I'm doing, I'm not going to go into great detail, but I'm far more keen on a lot more Solana, maybe more dupe, less NFTs, very little ETH, very little Bitcoin, and then in the future, having some USDC so I can deploy into other areas. Also, with your portfolio, you have to do this yourself, and you have to stick to it, and you have to update it. When you want to make a change, you have to make a change. So as an example, sometimes if something pumps up quite a bit, people will take some profits into USDC. They always want to have, say, 20% of their portfolio as USDC. Some people want to have 25 or even 40% as USDC so they can redeploy in other areas. Another thing is, commonly thought, is if this went to zero, would you survive? If no, you went too big. If all your money's in there and it goes to zero and you can't pay rent, then that's not very good portfolio management. So your risk tolerance is important. You need to stick to your level. If I say I want to go in with 10 Sol with a particular project and you don't have that risk level, maybe you want to go in with $10. It doesn't matter, we're all learning. With Bonk, they have massive market caps because of the potential and the fun. They're clever, they pull in communities, there's games, there's all sorts of things. They're basically like a little bit of a lottery ticket as well. And more people entered in 2021 for meme coins than any other narrative, and it'll most likely be the exact same this cycle as well. That's what brings in normies. They then have to learn a whole lot of stuff, but most people are not going to come in so they can work out how to do DeFi within, say, their first week on Meteora. All that stuff is quite complex, takes a little bit of time to learn. And as I showed you before, pump.fun is popular for most newbies coming in. If it's not for you, ignore. If you don't like them, don't play with them. But you have to keep in mind, this is what brings people in. Greed, that human emotion. Tip number 13, human emotions. Emotions in trading, they're not welcome. Gambling and winning is fun, losing isn't. Rise above your emotions. General rule is 3 cycles, but maybe it's less now, just because cycles are getting more and more extravagant. But basically, a general rule was you need to do 3 full crypto cycles to really kind of understand how everything works, narratives, for you to lose $100,000 and be like, oh, okay, well, that's a bit annoying or whatever. Essentially, to overcome those emotions. And of course, you can make it go faster, but just keep in mind here, it does actually take time. It is common for a new person to come in, they have 0.1 Sol, they go and lose their $15 and they're devastated. And to be honest, that's their experience. However, that means that whatever friend actually got them involved needed to get them to something like drip initially. Take a really, really easy gradient first because their risk tolerance is just not high. Tip number 14, taking profits. You have to have a taking profit plan. Another really common thing is, if I bought Bitcoin back at blah, 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 when I first heard of it, blah, blah, blah. If I bought Sol at $8, if I bought blah, 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 you are lucky, all that sort of stuff. The reality is, if you bought Bitcoin at $100, you probably would have sold it for a 2x at $200. Why? Because that's what the vast majority of people actually did. A lot of people have just lost access to their Bitcoins, but in general, that's what people did, and they thought they were absolute geniuses. Also, when Sol went to $8, not a huge amount of people were actually buying. It looked like a great time to actually buy. Personally, I was broke. FTX had taken the majority of my crypto, and the timeline was exceptionally bearish. If you don't know about hedging, I've covered it in other videos. You can just search for that on my channel. But in general, hedging is an option when, let's say, the Solana price goes to $600. If you don't want to sell it, you can essentially short it and you can keep the value the same. That may work out for taxation purposes, or maybe you actually just don't want to sell it. Tip number 15 is touch grass. Work every day, life will feel like a video game. I worked pretty much every single day in the previous cycle. And sometimes I did feel like I was in some sort of metaverse, like things weren't real. Like I would type to someone and someone would get all heated and like a keyboard warrior. And I was just like almost emotionless, like this is the response I give. These days I work 6.5 days. I work about 90 hours a week. I do want to bring it down, but that's just what I have to do in order to expand what I want to achieve. So in my opinion, Sundays or 1 day a week, doesn't have to be Sundays, it might be a good option. The reason why Sunday is quite often a good option in crypto is because it's generally quiet. It's very rare that some project would be silly enough to actually announce or do a release of, say, an NFT project or maybe a token sale or anything like that on a Sunday. It's just when people just uniformly know to rest. Also, exercise. If your health professional clears it, this is not financial advice, this is not health advice. But in general, you should exercise daily if your health professional clears it. And in my opinion, treat your body like a temple, not a tent. This bull market is nothing compared to what it will turn into. If you start to do this full-time, or even if you're working a full-time job and then you come back and then you're trying to put in like 20 hours or 30 hours, learning, investing, doing all that sort of stuff, you will probably start to use Uber Eats as a fantastically successful option. Get a salad, get some healthy options, maybe some nice fish, whatever you're going to eat. If you're just going to get cheesy, kind of gross pizza all the time, something that basically is just going to make you fat and with low energy, then you're going to have low energy. It's just not going to work. Also, get good sleep as often as possible. Ideally, every single night. I'm referring to being in bed for like 9 hours. Be in bed for 9 hours because generally you're going to wake up a couple of times, and if you can get 8 hours or more, you will be more successful. That's not health advice, that's just personal opinion. Tip number 16, scammers are all over. They are organized and they hunt in packs, so they level up their skill knowledge faster than you do. Very rare will you ever get your tokens back if you're scammed. Just a reality. You can go and pay people to try and recover it. It's not going to work out, 99.999% of the time. It's insanely low, the odds of actually recovering your funds. I'm sorry, it's just what it is. Never put your seed into a website. Your seed phrase, your secret recovery phrase, your private key, whatever. Just keep it really safe. The other thing is, there's so much to learn on this topic. So when you've got some time, try and just keep your knowledge base up. Watch my avoiding scams videos. I've done these. This is part of me just trying to provide value to the Web3 space. However, the reality is people won't watch them until they have been scammed, and then it's too late. That's why I try to keep little bits of tips in videos every now and then, a couple times a week, while I'm giving you alpha or updates or a tutorial. There's a little tidbit of information which could save you. Because these scams, as you saw with that WBTC one, they can take millions of dollars from you. And if you are scammed, the tendency is, of course, to quit, to completely quit. And once again, my suggestion is go touch some grass, go speak to an real life friend, and then just rebuild and just be more aggressive with your operational security and looking out for scammers. Next tip, number 17, is leave the space better. Web3 has the potential to help mankind. It's still full of humans. Humans still have major greed issues. I've seen this firsthand many, many times. It's just the nature of it. So, in my opinion, make your profits, but add value and don't scam and don't cheat people. Money changes people. It's definitely a fact. Charity is giving back. Of course, engage in some sort of charity. If you start to become changed by money, it's unlikely. Just take an allocation and give it to worthwhile charities that improve the space. Education, in my opinion, is the best chance at leveling up yourself and others, so support education. It's going to take me a little bit of time, but when I can work out how I can educate people really, really well and keep them really keen to actually watch the entirety of the video, and then hopefully ship that to hundreds of thousands and then millions of people, and then in different languages, then whatever I'm doing and whatever people start to copy, or maybe they invent it their own way, that's when I see Web3 really start to take off. Education is super, super vital. Tip number 18, make your own tips. Create your own guide and update it monthly. These things change as you learn more. Just put it in there, just put it into writing. Then you have some sort of code, something to actually follow. You need to keep what works and take out what doesn't. So some of my tips are, I don't drink. I don't drink any alcohol these days. I don't do any drugs. I've never done drugs. I don't want to do anything that's going to lower my mind and its creative abilities. Things I need to avoid, so this is like a tip to try and do less, is DMs. I just don't have enough time. And they use a lot of time by people having a whole lot of questions. So that's why I try and make these videos. I actually never wanted to be a content creator. I don't want to put my face out there. I don't want to actually do that. I just realized there was a major gap in the market. There were very few people that did really good kind of shorter, this is of course not a short video, but in general, shorter videos that are really good tutorials that teach you stuff and keep you up to date without shilling you something. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm actually doing this. One of the side effects is people start to take more and more of your time, which is a nice compliment, but just I'm already working like 90 hours a week. I just can't keep it up. Right now it's like 11:45 p.m. Sunday night. This is my half day. And then other tips such as things to improve, less directness. I'm very direct when I speak to people. I just find it's an efficient way, but of course I can upset people, so I need to be less direct. They are my tips. This is my commitment. So I'm trying to add value to the space. If you want to hate on me, go for it. Just remember, if it's not respectful, of course, I'm going to mute you or block you because I don't have time. I want to be better. When people leave feedback, I do actually consider all of it. With the greed stuff, I've realized that I need to go and cater to a viewpoint of real newbies. I understand that. The issue I had was really with one person saying the entire channel should be reported and taken off YouTube because greed did not go as we were expecting it to actually go. So as I said, I don't have much time. I just don't have time for haters. I have the goal to educate millions with transparent info on Web3. And I have a moral code and I'm not going to sell out. So that's my commitment. They're my tips. That's how I'm going to respond. Thank you so much for your time. All the best. Create your own tips. Do whatever you want to do. Just be better. Be a better you. I'll catch most of you in the next video.